Welcome to Blue Collar Mystics, the under-the-hood approach to the depths of human consciousness. So many mysteries, so little time, so many big words. That's why we aim to take the mystical and make it practical, usable in your everyday life. And you know, we want to hear from you. We want to hear your story. What happened when you started asking yourself the real questions? Like, who am I? What is this? Is it a hologram? Is this some kind of weird cosmic joke? Hey, these are the questions that we are trying to get to the bottom of as we explore the final rabbit hole together here as Blue Collar Mystics. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Blue Collar Mystics. We are live on YouTube, Instagram, Rockfin, and Facebook. Really excited. This is a new little show that we're doing, and I'm super stoked. Todd, remember to turn your phone volume down. I've got a good friend of mine that we're going to be doing a kind of a new, possibly a series. It might be a little bit more like a whole show. I don't know. We're going to see kind of how this thing trends and what happens with it. But we're going to be talking about some of our experiences out in the field, going out and talking to people, being more social, leveling up, getting rejected a lot, talking to random strangers on the street. We'll probably do some other types of content as well. But just a quick little bit of background. This is my friend Todd. Todd is...
Friend's a strong term, but yeah.
Yeah, right. So we did meet at a self-development conference, want to say, 2 or 3 months ago, something like that. And
it's flown by with you, Owen.
It really has. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. And so we've been noticing some different things in our own lives. You meet people later in life, and it's kind of intense, right? To actually meet friends, especially at the age that we are. Most of our friends are like coupled up. They are having their own lives, their own things going on. But Todd is someone who has studied a lot of self-development stuff. He's pretty well versed in David Hawkins' work. And Byron Katie, several other things. We've kind of coached each other a little bit back and forth. I've shared with him what I've been doing here on Blue Collar Mystics. And he and I have been going out and working on our social skills, going up and talking to strangers, meeting new people, girls particularly, and getting rejected.
None of them happy to meet us. Yes.
Yeah. Really just embarrassing ourselves publicly for the world to see. So we thought, what more fun could it be if we just went ahead? Like, I'm not getting enough humiliation doing open mics and comedy shows. So why not put myself on display here with my good friend Todd? Well, again, friend, loose term, but and share with you guys what we've been learning. Like, I've been doing so much theory, the transurfing stuff and talking on YouTube and all that. But it's like, what happens when the rubber meets the road? What happens when we take these concepts, these ideas that we talk about so much in self-development, and strip away all the facade and all the bullshit and actually try this stuff and see what happens out in the world in bougie Buckhead or wherever it is that we wind up going.
Yeah. So it's been really nice. A lot of self-development is, kind of in an enclosed room, and it's just a totally different thing when you're actually trying to go out. Whether that's you trying to execute on things in your business, or you trying to execute on going out and being social or lifting weights or whatever it is that you're trying to do in life. I have found a lot of these self-development topics can be pretty esoteric. So Owen and I have actually been going out. We're both single. And like you said, it's basically impossible to make friends when you're in your 40s, right? So most people are already coupled up. So to mirror it back. So Owen, you're amazing. Met you at a self-development workshop that was focused around health, wealth, relationships, with a strong focus on dating. And I would say, predominantly for men, but, could apply to both. And, out of a city of a couple million, maybe 100 people went, and out of 100 people going, I organized get-togethers and meetups, and out of that, maybe 5 people came, and then out of that, Owen and I are kind of the only 2 that are really doing anything. So it's just interesting to see, the reticence to kind of take action on things in life. So yeah, it's been awesome. So we can just dive into it, man. So like we were out last night,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
Owen and I are single. We're going out there getting shot down left and right. So I thought it might be interesting for us, after we're out there doing our thing, he and I have chats. I was like, we should just go live with this. We should just record this. Um, and then I think this will be pretty applicable, hopefully, for men and for women. I mean, what we're going to talk about is, our experience. And, unfortunately for you guys, we're males, but um, hopefully the lessons and the things that we share are broadly applicable. Anything else you would add to that, Owen,
No.
as I try to take over your live stream?
Yeah, no, totally on point there. What we want to talk about is our experience. Like I said, just pulling the facade off, exposing what's going on. Maybe we could talk about our goals in this whole thing. For me, I'd like to meet somebody that knocks my socks off. That's crazy about me as well, right? But we're going out and just literally putting ourselves out there in front of, dozens of people each and every weekend. And it's part of a larger goal, I would say, just in self-development in general, right? Like going out, putting yourself in uncomfortable positions and situations, opening yourself up to rejection, emotional experiences that are not fun in the moment. But the only way to grow is really through that. So, putting ourselves out there and, just trying to enjoy the process, learn and expand through it. And you've been great for that. And obviously we're, doing terribly out in the field, no fun to be around at all. And, I don't know why anybody would want to even tune into this. So it's probably going to be a complete waste of your time.
Well, hopefully your mom and my mom. So,
yeah, I think that's the 2 viewers.
Some context. So we're going out in Atlanta, right? So, we did Beltline and then we did Buckhead last night. We're both single, so we're approaching guys, girls, like being social, but also, hitting on girls. And we're doing it sober. Like we're not drinking. We are showing up, feeling nervous sometimes. It's a lot of the reason that people drink is to kind of take that edge off a little bit. And maybe we can talk about one of the things that we've discovered, which is you can basically get high, very akin to a runner's high. And I don't think that this is something that people really know. And it's not something that I knew at all. I grew up around a bunch of guys and gals, and the ethos there was like, who can just chug the most and party the most and like still kind of keep it together. But as you get on in years, that starts to wear on you, right? So I had this experience with you, Owen, because you don't really drink that much, right? You do stand-up comedy, so you're going to bars, all the time, and so you can't drink 7 nights a week. I mean, you could, but
well, you'll get like 7 DUIs a year. You know what I'm saying? So that's no way. You can't do that.
Yeah. So you opened my eyes up to this, which is you can basically go out, and if you don't drink, or can I share my experience with it, and then we'll kick it around? Okay.
Yeah.
So most people will feel some sort of anxiety or nervousness going into a social event. Not everyone. There are some people who apparently don't have any feelings, but for the rest of us, most of us feel some initial amount of nervousness or anxiety going into a large social setting. And then this is exacerbated by the fact that most of us are, working some sort of 9 to 5 and could be introverted. So one of the interesting things is most people drink to kind of take that initial edge off. And so that was me too. That's normally what most people do. Like I'll have a couple drinks and like I'll get what I found really interesting is if you don't do that, you basically will get high. And I don't think people know this or understand this. Just the easiest analogy is like a runner's high. Like same type of thing when you go for a run, you feel really good after. So as far as I can tell, what happens is you get a little bit of nervousness and you get a little bit of energy when you're going out. If you don't numb that with alcohol, that feeling eventually kind of works its way through and that energy starts to expand. And if you're out for 5 or 6 hours, normally you would have, 4 or 5 drinks. And at the end of the day, alcohol is a suppressant on the system. And now you've numbed yourself. So if you're going out for a long enough time and you're being social and you're putting yourself out there and you're just chatting, and you're not drinking, it's really nice. So not only will you basically get high, but you will also open your mind. Like your mind will expand and turn on because you are really kind of hitting your central nervous system by being so social and saying hi to so many people and not consuming a depressant at the same time. So that's been a really nice experience. And the other really nice experience of not drinking when you go out, is the next day. Like all of that energy and everything that you've been working on during the week carries over. So instead of having to play catch up and then kind of go back and one step forward, two step back. I mean, I know people say 2 steps forward, one back, but like honestly, if you're drinking, it's like 4 back. So you don't lose any ground on any of your physical goals, your spiritual, your emotional, anything that you're trying to work on, and also you open up your mind, and also that carries in. And it's just been a really nice experience. Like it's been really nice to do that. So 2 caveats to getting high when you are going out. One, if you do nothing, you actually have to like talk to other humans. You know what I mean? It's not like if you just sit there sober that you're gonna just get high all of a sudden. If you do, call me and let me know how that works. I would love to get in on some of that action. But you actually are taking action, and the fact that you are taking action and complimenting people or introducing yourself to people or introducing people to each other. So that will turn your system on. And then the second part, which I think you and I started talking about last night, Owen, is kind of putting yourself in a trance. So as far as I can tell, we're kind of always in a trance. We have so many things being said to us, so many beliefs being kind of pushed into us that it's easiest just to assume that you're always being put in some sort of trance, or you're always in some sort of, kind of reality tunnel, if you will. And one of the things that works really well socially is if you find a way to kind of constantly reinforce yourself. And I was thinking about this on a run this morning, Owen. So kind of the way that you treat a little kid, where like no matter what they do, you're like, that's amazing, like that's so great. It needs to be the same thing if you're going out and being social, that basically no matter what you do, you celebrate the fact that like you're out, you're doing things, you're taking action, you're sober. That, because most people will do something and then it won't go that well, and then they'll, that'll kind of like, knock that like upward spiral. But one thing that, and this is copied from one of our other teachers, but like we will celebrate every single interaction. And if you are around us, you will hear us yell it out. It's, we're psychos apparently, but we will yell things out to celebrate, like 1,000 out of 10. That's one that we got from Owen Cook. That's super, super good. And then, who would have the balls to do that? Because if you're really putting yourself out there and you're doing it soberly, like almost no one else is doing it. And those things combined basically lead to, really good feelings, really great energy, and it carrying over. Owen, so that was like 10 minutes of me talking. So
that's good though. Those were good. Yeah, that was good stuff. Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of people would shudder at the fact of going out and not drinking. I mean, I did initially too, like shirk that really hard when I first started thinking about doing it. Comedy kind of made me do it, right? Like we just talked about. But I think most people, when they go out, they're not probably even introducing themselves to strangers whatsoever. And one thing that I kind of want to address too is the idea of being an introvert, which technically I am an introvert. And even if you are an introvert, you can still benefit from this and putting yourself out socially and getting into higher and higher states of consciousness through socializing. Now you might not be completely recharged. You might be kind of tired afterwards or what have you. And you might need to go and lay down in your bed and just, have a moment to yourself. But just because you're an introvert, like this has become everything's an identity now. Right. So it's like, just because you're an introvert doesn't mean you can't socialize. It just means that's how you charge your battery up. So I've talked to several people who are also introverts and been like, hey, so check it out. Like, go out, talk to people, minimize the time between each interaction, introducing other people to each other, and just getting into a social, building some social momentum. Like, it doesn't have to be the whole entire night of you talking to everybody, obviously, right? But I totally agree with you that this momentum, it can carry over. And honestly, at times, like my brother and I were in Florida and we were going out till 2, 3, 4 in the morning. I couldn't even go to sleep. Like I could not go to sleep until 6, 7 a.m. in the morning, just because of the momentum, just because of the emotions and the heightened state that I'm in and the way that I view the world. Once I challenge myself to go through this process, at first it's really hard. Okay. I'm not going to lie. Everybody wants the magic pill. And it's like, there's not one. It does not exist. But once you kind of get into 3, 4, 5, 6 interactions, now all of a sudden you have this momentum and it's starting to build. So the more that you can continue down that, the more you're actively just bumping your state up. And one of the things that I've shared a lot with people is the David Hawkins map of consciousness. Mm-hmm. And if you guys hit me up, I'll shoot you a copy of it or a version of it that my friend made. I'm happy to do that. But that is a really good metric to kind of test yourself and where you're at, as far as like the way that you feel. And that's one of the things that we talk about. Like I'll go and talk to somebody, like just be like, oh, I'm going to go compliment this person. I'll come back to Todd. Todd's like, how do you feel? And that's a real genuine question. That's not like, how you feeling? Oh, I'm good. You know what I mean? Like, it's not that. It's like, how do you feel? How do you feel in your body? One of the things that you said to me that's really stuck is that you're not trying to feel better. You're trying to feel more. Mm-hmm. And that is super powerful. I find that to be like really, really helpful, because when we don't allow ourselves to feel the emotions that are coming up, and that could be anger, that could be frustration, depression, any range of emotion, then it winds up kind of getting shoved down into the basement, the emotional basement, and into the shadow. So it's now repressed. And so now it can turn into bitterness, angst, anger, and then it pops out and you blow your cap at a terrible moment, right? And now you can self-sabotage and it opens up all these other potential consequences just because you're afraid of the emotion. So we might be out there. I might be like, man, I am not feeling good. And that's okay. It's okay to not feel good. It's okay to be nervous. It's okay. It's great to have someone to do this with. I used to do this by myself.
Impossible. So hard.
It was awful because there's no one to, decompress with. There's no one to kind of bounce ideas off of or any objective, perspective to kind of get a little bit more clarity from. So it's been super helpful to be able to do it with someone. But yeah.
Let me ask you this. So this topic, I would kind of like bucket this topic as, basically being social and having being social be a spiritual endeavor. So your audience better than me. So I want to make sure that we make it contextual. So what do you think, what do you think we should share that would kind of benefit them the most, Owen? Because there's a lot of different, we were out for like 6 or 7 hours yesterday. So there's a lot, and it doesn't just apply to only strictly being social. I mean, most of what we're doing is pretty broadly applicable, but what do you think we should chat about that will benefit them the most?
So I think that's a very good question. I'm open to kind of wherever this goes, and people feel free to chat in the chat and let us know what your thoughts are. I think it's fun and funny that we're dating, we're pulling the mask off, we're talking about the juicy stuff that happens within dating. Obviously, I don't want to implicate anyone into anything. We'll use fake names and all that kind of stuff.
Real names, middle, surname, address.
Yeah, exactly. So, with that, I would like to talk about that, right? Like I talked a little bit about my goals, like why I'm pursuing this as a potential outlet, right? Like I don't have enough going on. I need to just add more
Yeah,
stress. I don't
more
know what
complexity.
cortisol is. What is that? What is fight or flight? I've never felt it. So, what can we talk about and what can we share with the audience that they can maybe take and use and apply in their life? Give them a little bit of inspiration and a little bit to draw from.
Yeah, so I would say, those of you guys who have any questions, just drop them to Owen and we'll riff on it. So let me just kind of share my context for what has been occurring. So there's kind of two extremes here that I see. There's people that are very results driven and they're just, driving towards the result. And then there are people that are, very spiritual and it's, all about the spiritual. And I think at either one of these extremes, the outcomes are not that good. So if you're just driving towards a result, whatever it is, whether you're trying to lose weight or you're trying to make money or you're trying to date more or whatever, the people that achieve these very extreme results are basically like broken on the inside, and you wouldn't want to spend 5 seconds inside their head. So there's just like no soul left. On the other extreme, you see these people who are very, very spiritual who aren't taking any action. And that's also no good. Like they just are, well, it's just all this and it's all this, but then no no accountability. They're not paying their bills. They believe everything should just come to them. They're super squirrely. They don't uphold their agreements because everything is super spiritual. Um so kind of my context for this is this dichotomy between wanting to drive towards an external result, whatever it is in your life, and then also wanting to feel good, wanting to have good emotions, wanting to have a spiritual expansion while you're doing it, and kind of avoiding one or the other. And people might say, well, the spiritual people really have it, and it's like, I've seen these people that really go down that path to an extreme, and there's just there's no agency left, and they're not creating, like, you wouldn't really want their lives either. So what we're talking about is kind of the middle path between these two, which is like taking action and driving towards results and doing it with soul and doing it from a place of expansion and growth, emotional growth and spiritual growth, and really trying to go down the middle here. So long story, that's a lot of words for me to say that action is spiritual. And I
Yeah,
think a lot of people miss that. Like it is a spiritual endeavor when you are taking action. That is a spiritual endeavor. And you want your actions as best as you can to come from a right place. You want them to lead towards expansion. But at the end of the day, action is spiritual. So as Owen and I are going out and just call it what it is, hitting on girls because we are single and we are interested in having relationships, there are a lot of men that will fucking avoid doing that and they will just be on the apps. And like they're on the apps and they're dating and they're just trying to get what they fucking want out of this area of life. And it's just like a take mentality. And you're also missing out on all the growth. So the other dichotomy here is like being in a relationship or being single and understanding that there's value in both of these positions. I mean, being in a relationship is great. There's pros and there's cons. And being single is great. There's pros and there's cons. And what we're talking about is most people that are single are missing out on the actual growth that's at hand. Like if you're just doing the apps and it's like, dude, it's just you're missing out on all of the growth that you can have, all the expansion that you can have, all of the emotions that you get to come up and feel and work through. Anyways, I could talk longer on that, but Owen, what are your thoughts on what I shared there?
Yeah, I think that's really good. Like those emotions aren't going to come up, right? If we lock ourselves in our closet. This is what I mean. Like I've studied all this spiritual stuff, the personal growth stuff. It's real easy to just hide yourself away and act like, oh, well, I'm a magic manifester and things are just going to come to me because I'm magic and blah, 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 the law of attraction, right? but you miss out on the experience of growth because these emotions aren't coming up. Like when I go out and someone just snubs me, or like I could share the story of like the guy who like sat down at my table and basically just took it over or whatever, right? Like this brings up emotions in me that like make me hate, right? Like I'm so angry and upset and pissed, or like just, you know, thinking the night's going a certain way and then it takes a complete turn to somewhere else where you were like, what the hell just happened? So many unexpected things. And we want to sit here in kind of this pious lotus position, like, oh, we know everything about the world and how it works just because we read a few books. And then a lot of people I've found don't want to test these concepts actively, right? Because if you test it and it doesn't work, well, what does that mean, right? That means it's not real and you've based your life on a lie and now you're fucked. But the reality of it isn't that it's not real and it doesn't work, because these principles are found in pretty much every book. Like a lot of what we're talking about is going to be found in the Bhagavad Gita, the Kabbalion, reality transurfing, which that's my audience's kind of book. But it's like whenever we have the opportunity to try this stuff and actually put it into action, that allows us to tweak it and understand it better instead of hiding ourselves away. In that way, we can feel safe. Like that's what our emotions are designed to do. Like our emotions are designed to make us feel safe, which is why we self-sabotage, which is why we are afraid to put ourselves in these new and uncomfortable positions and actually grow. But that's not what growth is. Growth is exposure therapy, or rejection therapy, even you could call it. That's what Barry was talking about when I had her on here. And that's exactly what we're talking about. So instead of just being the hermit and having all this information and knowledge that you've just, you know, put in and you have, and you know, all the astrology and all this, there's a lot of value there. But if it's not being applied, if it's not being actively put in and tried and tested and experientially learned, then you don't really have it. It might be knowledge, but it's not wisdom.
Yeah, so let me riff on this for a second. So most people are trying to avoid feelings. That is what is running their lives. They don't ever want to feel shitty again. They don't ever want to feel small again. They don't ever want to be upset again or get rejected like that again, or like the list goes on. But most people are trying to avoid having to feel shitty. And I want to point out that what Owen and I are doing is going into places and actively doing things that bring these feelings up. So I just want to say, you know, my experience of it, and it's true for me too, that I don't fucking want these feelings to run my life. And I don't want to basically give my power over to the fact that I don't want to feel upset or sad or lonely or rejected or whatever the fucking feeling is. And so most people assume, well, you can just kind of push it away. And then it's just like, but that's shaping your life. That's shaping your growth. And so the spiritual component of this is actively dancing with the universe, if you will, and doing things that are bringing up these feelings and feeling them fully and owning them. So this can take any form. It doesn't just occur socially, but I will say that social is like a very big one. Like if you want to get feelings activated, try going out and talking to people that you don't know. Like literally all of the feelings will come up. So I'll give you an example, and this is going to be a very guy dominant version, but we'll just use it. So there was a table of girls. This was like 2 weeks ago, and it's like 4 girls sitting at a table. And I'm like, we walk in, and I'm like, okay, I guess it's fucking time to start. So I'm like, go up to this table, and you know, like I kind of hem and haw for like a little bit. And I'm like, okay, I just have to go in. Like I am feeling nervous. So instead of trying to push that feeling down and not feel that feeling, I walked up and I was like, hey, I'm Todd. I want to introduce myself. I'm going to be honest. I'm feeling nervous doing this. And I was talking to Owen about this last night, which is the importance of feeling your feelings and publicly owning your feelings, whatever part. And your version of this, if you're okay with me sharing, Owen, is like wanting to be perfect. I think that's another one that comes up for people, wanting to look perfect. If you just talk about that publicly, if you're with someone, you're like, what's happening right now is that part of me wants this to go perfect. And you're owning the fact that you're feeling that way and you're owning it publicly. And so we are doing things, I don't want to like wax on, but we are doing things that pull up these feelings. Like it's not like when we go out for 6 or 7 hours and we're introducing ourselves to people that all of the interactions go well. That is not what's occurring. Like some interactions go very bad. It's just the nature of interacting with random people,
Yep.
it just is what it is. So, and it will bring up all of these feelings. And so I feel like it's an important point to kind of focus on, which is the feelings that are coming up, they will not go away and they will run your life. And so you really want to move towards them and you really want to do things that pull those feelings up and like allow the feelings to work their way through. So Owen, anything that you would add to that, or maybe help take this and steer it in a way that's going to land the most for your audience?
Well, yeah, no, I think you did a great job there just explaining that. That's the big thing, is that's what they call spiritual bypassing, right? It's like you want to avoid the negative feelings. You want to avoid feeling bad. So in order to do that, you basically just repress the negative emotions. But that's not any way to really grow. That's not any way to really make any progress toward your goals and get the things that you want. Like your emotions are just telling you, hey, we're comfortable here. We like the way we feel. We're okay at this level, right? Whatever that is, if it's career wise, if it's relationship, what doesn't matter. Your emotions are like, this feels good to me. This is what is my neutral. This is my neutral. And what we want to actively do, and it's not something, again, that happens overnight, but we want to elevate that neutral sort of balance point emotionally by exposing ourselves to these emotions that are going to come up. And some of the tools that you have shared with me have been extremely valuable in understanding these emotions and allowing them to kind of complete their cycle, right? So like stuff from like my childhood with my parents and my mom or whatever, where I can like kind of understand the origin of this. And Reiki does this. There's a lot of different techniques that you can use that can be helpful for this. But to basically complete that loop and allow it all the way around. And then now it's not that it's gone. It doesn't go away. But instead of it being like a 10, like this, I'm triggered or whatever, then all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, this is like a 2 or a 3. So I can handle this. It's not nearly as intense.
Yeah, the other thing I want to add to this is like this is why I like the dating and pair bonding space so much. So say what you want, but you will not find a better space to trigger basically all of your shit. Anything from childhood, anything else, like I don't know why it is. I'm not saying that I understand why that it is, but basically dating and pair bonding will bring up all of your shit. Like there's just really nothing that, kind of survives that process. So that's why I don't know that's why I'm attracted to that space. That's why I'm so interested in it, because I just see that for men and for women, it seems like something that basically takes all of their trauma and all of their experience and like brings it to the surface. And it manifests differently for guys and for gals, and at different points, and everyone's different. But I know that that's why I've been, so interested in that space. What about you, Owen?
Well, it's juicy, first of all,
Yeah.
right? Like it's no matter if you're in a relationship or you're single, you're like, oh, what happened? You text her. What did you text her? Or what did they send back? Or what did he say? Or whatever, right? Like, so there's this curiosity around the topic that is just kind of irresistible to a lot of us, right? Like we're kind of prone to exploring this arena and learning about other people's experiences. And we can learn about our own experiences through other people's experiences in relationships. So it's one of those things too that's so complicated, and there are so many moving parts. Like, it's not like a static metric, right? Like, two people are completely different, and then you put those two people with two completely different people, and now the dynamics are completely unique to their situation. So there's so much complexity and nuance around it that it's fascinating just for that. But then you kind of like see the social stigma too, and hookup culture, and the way that people act now. Because like, I think, to me, like, dating leading up before the pandemic looked a lot different than what it looks like now. Now, part of that might be my own experience and perspective of it. And I've also aged a few years, right? Like, through that process. But when I was in college, it was different. And I had obviously a larger social circle. You're going to see that most people, when they meet people, they're meeting people from a friend or through some sort of a social group. I think a lot of people don't go out and intentionally attempt to meet strangers. It's not the most effective, to be completely honest, way to meet potential matches or partners. Is probably more effective, honestly, to just be on an app or something like that. You might be able to pick through and find those commonalities that way. But I also,
So let me ask you this then. Like, why should they even listen to us? Like, it's like we're doing the most arduous version that's the least effective, And like, so why? Like, if there's someone there that's just like, well, I'm just going to go on the apps, and like, like, why even do what these two psychopaths are doing?
well, everyone's different, so I'm not telling anybody that they necessarily should do this. But I would say that, okay, so I'll just say from my personal experience, the majority of relationships that I've had in my life have been me settling. I'll just say it like that, like, I found someone through someone, we wound up together, and we started dating, and we started having feelings for them. I had great relationships with them. I don't have any regrets about that. And I'm not trying to shit talk anybody, but it was just me being like, oh, well, here's this person. They're interested. I think they're pretty cool. Let's see what goes. And you have to try that out anyway. You have to kind of see if you're, compatible or not. So that's just part of the process. But whenever I've tried to go after someone that I really liked, I've had far less luck with that. And I think part of that has to do with the skill set around meeting people, meeting strangers, and being able to have the skills, the range, the emotional capacity to understand someone else and to manage and lead a relationship as a man. So like, that's a very male centric perspective. But, if you're a guy, let's say, and you're listening to this podcast and you're like, well, I want to meet like somebody who I really, really like, that knocks my socks off, and I want to be able to manage and maintain that relationship, then it's going to require more skills probably than you have right now. I'm sorry to say it, but like, it just kind of is, right? Like, that's the thing about meeting your match. So like, you hear the phrase, like, I met my match and I got burned, because it's a lot harder when it's that intense kind of connection. It's somebody that you really have strong feelings for, that affects you emotionally. And so to build that emotional resilience, to build a capacity to be able to guide the relationship and to guide yourself and have self-control within it, is a lot harder than you might think outside looking in. It's not a skill set that we're born with. It's not a skill set that most of our parents taught us or dads taught us, or there's no dating class in school or high school or anything like that, and how these dynamics work. So, I mean, up to everybody how they want to do it, how they want to live their life. That doesn't matter to me. I'm opening this up because I think it's a valuable experience that we've been able to share, and to basically take this and leverage it for other people. And so they have another perspective. Most people aren't going to be this open. Most people aren't going to be as vulnerable as you and I are, where we're pulling pretty much zero punches other than people's names on the fucking internet. You know what I mean? Like, I'm already going up and talking about, my balls on stage or whatever, you know what I mean? So like, why not add this to it? Because there's different skill sets, and just because you know and you have some skills and abilities in one skill set, like whatever that is, call it manifestation or spirituality or mindfulness or whatever, it doesn't mean it just translates over to dating and relationships. It doesn't. You could be financially very savvy or a very good business person, but that doesn't mean that you're going to be any good when it comes to navigating the challenges in dating. So there's a lot of nuance to it. I know it was like I'm got a long answer, but for me and my goals and why anyone should listen, I think number one, it's juicy and fun. We're, obviously have no sense of humor and are incredibly not entertaining at all. But also I think there will be some interesting insights. I think there's a lot that we can all share, by opening up and just being more vulnerable about this, especially with the social ideologies and identities and all that kind of stuff that we have in society today. It's a complicated space,
Okay, let's talk about rejection.
Okay.
So what's your, I feel like that's something that, people pretty universal. And pretty universal that they're trying to avoid rejection. So you have two men who are not, that are heading directly towards it. So let's talk about how you experience, because you and I probably experience rejection. I know I have gotten rejected so much that I for sure experience it way different than most people. So I'm curious kind of how you experience it currently in your current. So let's just talk about last night. Were there any hard rejections last night?
Let's see.
Or think back to your last hard one, because we've been going out. I want to make this clear for people. We've been going out every weekend. Like, this isn't some bullshit theory. This is like, we are out there, and I want to make it seem like we're like, the vanguard and we're the bravest men alive. There's a lot of men and women out there doing a lot of brave things. Like, I'm not, I don't want to say that us going out is the bravest. It's just like, we are actually doing this. So this isn't some pontificating, but yeah. So let's talk about either your relationship with rejection or your last hard rejection.
So my relationship with rejection, it's gotten easier and easier, but what I've found, or like, to manage emotionally, but what I've found is that a lot of people, I haven't had like an overt harsh rejection. Honestly, not in some time. Most of the time I can tell when they're like, hey, it's nice meeting you. Nice talking to you. Right. Like, that's a way of saying, I don't want to talk to you anymore. I'm done with this conversation and I don't want to exchange information.
My memory is coming up of the rejection that I had like 2 weekends ago. And it's very subtle, but if people actually think about the experience, it is probably one of the worst. So there was this really attractive girl. We were at a restaurant, and we were grabbing a bite, and there was this really attractive girl that was in line at the host station. And I went up to introduce myself, and she acted like I did not exist. Like, I was like, hey, I think you're cute. I want to introduce myself. Nothing. Which people were like, oh, that's not that big of a deal, which it is true. Like, the worst form of rejection is that the person doesn't even acknowledge your existence. Like, you go to say something to them and they look right through you and pretend like you're not there. Now, so that was an interesting experience, right? And, there's a lot of thoughts that I had around that. It's like, well, like I am putting myself out here. I am, like, I've been doing this for a while, but like I think you saw that one. You were like 3 feet away and you were like, wow. And I was like, yeah, like, that was, because there were other people. Like, I want to be clear for anyone watching. There were other people in line in front of and behind this girl that watched me go up to introduce myself and watched her pretend like I didn't exist. And then I just walked away, which is like, I don't know. That was a tough one. That one for me was probably, I would say that's probably one of the tougher rejections that I've had recently. So what was your advice? Because I know I came back and I was like, man, that was a fucking doozy. Because I'm fine with like, look, if you're not interested, like, hey, no thanks, or I have a boyfriend, or like whatever. Looking like right and just acting like the other person isn't even there is like that's a rejection at a different level that I think most people uh, avoid for sure. Most people will avoid that. And also probably one of the more painful ones. But what I find interesting about it is the worst rejection is like it's a nothing. Like it's actually literally the person nodding, not like nothing occurring. But then it brings up all these feelings about like good enough and self-esteem and like da, 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 da. So I came back to you on that one. That's probably the most recent one that I was like, oof. And I would say it took me a solid 15 minutes to like get back to do it again, like to go to like go to the next person that I thought it's like that, most people it's like that would take them off the board for a couple months, and so for us it's like 5 or 10 minutes. So and we have feelings, by the way, like we're not fucking psychos, like we are like feeling our feelings and like just like really being authentic with it. So what do you remember your advice to me on that, or do you remember kind of how you tried to coach me through that one?
Well, dude, I was so impressed because there was literally zero hesitation. Like you saw someone that, inspired action in you that you were attracted to. You're like, wow, this is a knockout, totally my type. And then you just immediately walked over and introduced yourself. Like there was no, I looked over and you were just gone. Like you weren't like, I'm going to go talk to nothing. You were just like, dead, like lightning bolt right over there. And I was like, damn, that's impressive. So the boldness alone to me was inspiring.
And then on the back half, just you're like, note to self. So my feeling on that is like, we kind of look for like a perfect situation. Like we look for the situation to be like good. And I will agree that there are times when, in all honesty, you should not approach, right? So like if the guy or the gal that you're wanting to talk to is like really having an emotional moment, which that can happen to us, probably not the right time. But outside of that person having a very big emotional moment, like if they're currently crying over something, I'm not gonna be like, hey, like that's fucking tone deaf. But it doesn't matter if they're in a deep conversation. It doesn't matter if they're already like, yes, if they are currently kissing that person, like, okay, fine. Caveat for that one too. But like most of the time, there's just not a perfect time to do it. And so for me, I'm like, if you see it, like, and it's not like a terrible time to do it, like there's no good time because you're always going to come up with excuses as to why you shouldn't. You're always going to come up, just like a lawyer, like they'll always find a fault with the business plan. Like there's no perfect, right? So like, as long as you isolate it, like, hey, this is an absolutely terrible time to do it, then go for it. Which does take courage. So thank you. Appreciate it. My favorite human just coaching me through it. So you see me go up and then you see her just not react to me or even pretend like I just walked over and said things directly to her. So then when I came back, what was your coaching to me then?
I'll be honest with you, I don't exactly remember. I was just impressed, man. I was like, damn, like who would have the balls to do that? Who would just leap up out of their seat mid-dinner and just go right up to this, beautiful girl who you're very attracted to is completely your type, and you're just like in there immediately. So first of all, applaud. Like, I don't know what I said. I don't remember.
Amazing. I'm so perfect.
I know, right? Like, give yourself a pat on the back, 1,000 out of 10, winner effect, hack the dopamine drip, all that.
Yep.
But
so let's talk about that. Yeah, because that's basically what came up. So this is one of the tools that we use when we are going out there and going after things that we want. And it doesn't necessarily have to be like, this is an extreme version of it that most people aren't going to do, but like insert whatever it is that you want to go after that you're scared to go after. And just a complete failure. Like you can say what you want about it, but like, as far as like it working versus it not working, like there's really like no argument there. Like there's reframes and it's all good. But so what we really focused on is celebrating the action. Like the fact that you had the balls to do that, the fact that you're sober and that you walk up and you do it is the win.
Mm-hmm.
And that is true across the board for anything that you're trying to do. Like, so if you think that you're going to be able to win in life by taking action and beating yourself up when it doesn't go well, like you will lose. Like there's no doubt about it. Like, because there are other people like Owen or myself or anyone else that's doing the work that's like, they celebrate the fact that they take action and that encouragement allows them to continue to take healthy, right action in their life towards the things that they want. So your coaching back to me was basically like, hey, you had the balls to do it. Like that is the win. The fact that you took the action is the win. Because I just see people and they'll do something and then they'll beat themselves up. And then that cycle goes on for a while. And we've really worked on putting yourself in a trance where you are proud of yourself for taking the action, no matter how badly it went. Because I walked back to Owen, I was just like, oh my God, that was brutal. But then eventually I got back to like, hey, good on you, man. Like you stepped up. Like the rest is out of your control. Like there's nothing you can do about that. So yeah, what else? Is there another example of something that happened to us recently that we feel like would be beneficial to talk about?
Well, I think there's a lot. I mean, it's so much fun to go out there and have all these different they start to kind of mesh into it. I can't remember which weekend was which and all of that. I've met I would say maybe I met 2 or 3 people out of the dozens that we've talked to.
Yeah, let's talk about your failures.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, so actually before I think you were out of town one weekend and I went out with like my cousin and Ishmael. And we went to a spot and the waitress was super rude to me. There was a girl that like sat at the table that we were at and she was like, she was really entitled. And I said something that I probably shouldn't have. And then she got like kind of upset, right? Like I was like, I know that was crass. I apologize, and then she like let me kind of have it. And it put me in at like a really down kind of spot where I could easily have downward spiraled throughout that whole night, the rest of the night. But we wound up going to another spot, actually the same spot we were at last night. And I wound up like just dancing. And this happened to me too when I was in Florida. Dancing for me, huge hack to kind of like bump up in those levels of consciousness. And I would sometimes be struggling. And one game that I can play is like, I will dance through the crowd and try not to hit anybody, and just like be moving, almost like, like really effeminate, but like move all the way through the crowd and try not to touch anyone. Right. And like, that was like a little game that I could play, but I wound up dancing, meeting a girl who was dressed up. It was in July, I guess. I remember now because she was dressed up like in all this Christmas garb. Christmas in July. Turns out she's a doctor. Start talking to her. And then based on that, I sort of pivoted off that and started talking to the other people in the bar and being like, hey, this is so-and-so. She's dressed up for Christmas in July. What do you think about that? Like, you got to meet her. You guys should meet, and just start introducing strangers to each other. They don't know you don't know them. They don't know that you don't know everyone there. They have no idea. So like I'll wind up like introducing all these people and kind of becoming the center of that like little dance floor right there. And then getting into such a high vibe from that where I literally could not go to sleep until like 6, 7 in the morning. Which I don't know. I got to figure out how to manage that, but it is what it is. But like turning the night around like that and knowing that you can go from literally feeling so bad and like being harshly rejected, like to an emotional low that someone literally like treats you like dirt, or it pretends like you don't even exist. And then you can still overcome that emotionally and get to a higher level. Like you don't have to get to the point where I was that particular night. I had activated.
Yeah, yeah. And I wanna make one small tweak here. So like when we say overcome, we we don't mean not feeling the feeling. So like you still want to feel the feeling that's coming up, you know, because like that is what happens. Like people will subtly like try to reject that experience, like that experience happened. So like the way that we overcome it is like you feel the feeling fully and then you reinforce the fact that you took action. And that is part of why I think it is relatively a spiritual endeavor, because you're getting triggered left and right, you know, like you're having things where it's like, I mean, I don't know. So we were out last night, very loud, probably one of the hardest environments. I was thinking about it this morning. I was like, could we find a harder environment to be completely sober in, you know, where it's just like music is so loud, everyone, you know, dressed really well, pretty crammed in there, everyone knows each other. Like it's really hard to have a conversation, and it's just like it's only vibe based at that point, which is also very hard. And you know, transparently, I don't feel like I'm there yet. You know what I mean? I would say within this context, that is the hardest one. I think any guys that are listening could understand this. So imagine a very loud, crowded bar where you cannot talk. And the only way that you're going to meet the girl is by basically walking up and like holding out your hand to her and all of her friends and getting them to dance. It's like that is really hard to pull off. I'm not saying that we need to, I'm not saying that this is something that, but like within this context that we're sharing, I don't know of anything more difficult. Like I don't think, you know, and I know I'll back this up slightly so that it lands for this audience more. One of the beautiful parts between men and women is that women basically reinforce these character traits that you really want to have as a man. So it's this really nice dynamic where women, as far as I can tell, they basically like they want you to be competent, they want you to be confident, they want you to be socially free, and like these are all good things for you. So one of the really nice parts about being a man is that you have this reinforcement of something that you really want that causes you to develop these things and these character traits that like left to your own devices you would not, like you would not work on them to the same effect. So in this environment it is pure vibes. Like you as a guy have to get your vibe good. And like I don't think this is something that women would necessarily understand or know about, but like that's pretty hard to do. Like it's pretty hard to get into that vibe where you can confidently go up and just off the energy. And you know, for me, like I kind of shied away from it on a couple. You know what I mean? Like I just didn't. So I don't know. I don't know what's up with that. There's this part of me that there's some fear there. You know, there's some fear there around that rejection or that failure. There's something in my system that's like scared of getting hurt in some way, or you know, I don't know what it is. And I know we're a little bit inside baseball here, but I'm curious what your thoughts are on what's occurring there and how that might be applicable to peeps watching.
Yeah, so I don't know. I feel a little bit more comfortable with that. Just because like I have had more exposure maybe in those types of environments. But and also I think your strength is your ability to talk and riff and you know just vibe that way, you know, the mouthpiece, you know, whereas I might not be quite as eloquent. So like for me, like I might just be able to lean in to that emotion. Um, But
so would you let's call it what it is then. So last night, would you have been comfortable going up to like, the most attractive girl that you see in the nicest venue and then like holding out your hand and like try, in front of her friends?
definitely no. Definitely
Yeah, yeah.
no.
Also, by the way, in this, they're turned into each other. It's not like they're opened and out and facing. It's like you have to go into the middle of it.
Yeah.
So
Well, there was one group of girls and there were some guys mixed in with them that I did open up to while we were dancing, and they were like having a good time. And I just like leaned over and I was like, "Hey, stop having so much fun. What's the matter with you?" And they laughed, and then I started talking to them. I'm like, "What are you guys doing out? Are you celebrating anything?" They're like, "Oh, it's her sister or it's her brother's birthday." And I was like, "Oh yeah, what's his name?" She goes, "Juan." I was like, "Oh, that's so," I made a joke about that, and they're laughing, right? I'm like, so they get to the point where there's at least an opening there. And, it didn't turn out that we really had any sort of chemistry, but, it opened the door.
what
So
what about the no opening?
Yeah. So the no
Well,
opening.
because like there was that group of 3 girls. They were all taller than me, and they all looked really amazing, like drop dead gorgeous. And they are like turned into each other, and the music's so loud, and I was just like dancing, and I'm like, I don't even, what the fuck am I supposed to do here? You know what I mean? And that's the only move that I can think of in that situation. And there was fear there.
I think in that situation, you could do something really silly to grab their attention, like do like a funny dance move beside them or something like that to sort of get them to shake out of this little circle group that they're in.
Now we've been dancing near them for probably 10 minutes.
Right.
So
Okay.
what's your move?
Okay. So at that point,
fear.
Yeah, I don't. It's hard. I think what you said to the idea of vibe at that point is kind of everything. I think they're picking up on.
So this is my catch 20.
It.
This is my catch 22 for this very specific, inside baseball thing, which is like the vibe is what opens it, but you don't have the vibe yet. And like the way that you get that vibe is by doing it. So as I look back on it, the way to hit that level is just doing it, even though it probably won't work because you're facing the fear. And then when it doesn't work, now that like that was my take on it. Like you and I, we talk after we do these things because we're complete nerds, losers, live in our mother's basements. So even last night I've been like, we should just do this live. So my thinking and feeling on it now is like being in that environment. I'm not saying you have to go to these environments. We would agree that like this is probably the worst environment. Like, why torture ourselves this way?
Yeah.
Why do this? This is
kind of
terrible,
brutal. Yeah.
The response I would give is that if you do it sober, you're going to really open up your system. Like you're going to be very alive. And that energy is going to bleed over into every other area of your life. It's like doing something that you're scared of, period, across the board. It doesn't really matter what it is. But anytime you have a fear and you move towards it, like you open up the energy. So in this context, I think that's like the last thing, right? Because I told you about, I don't remember if you remember this, but I was down in Miami. I was in one of the nicest clubs in Miami, and there was a girl that was very, very attractive. And she was like, in the VIP section with guys with her. And I was just like, have to do it. You know what I mean? And so like I danced and like I put my hand out, and then like she put her hand in mine. I went and she was like, no, like I don't dance. And like, all the guys at the table or whatever. It's like, okay, that didn't feel great. But like what felt good about that is the social freedom. So when I was on my run this morning, I was like, okay, I think you just have to do it. Like, I think as much as you want the vibe to be there in order to have it, do it. Like once you go for it and it falls flat, at that point, it drops. Like the fear drops. Like you have more social freedom. Not if you do it the typical way where you then beat yourself up because it went wrong, but if you celebrate the fact that you had the balls to do it. So I feel like that was a miss last night. And we can say what we want about it. Oh, Todd, that wouldn't be the right girl for you. Or, okay, cool, you do that. But then what? Like, I don't fucking care. Like, the truth is that I had fear to do something and I didn't do it.
Well, kind of back to what we were talking about before, it's so easy for us to just close into our shell and say, oh, well, this, or give a number of
so many excuses. And we'd already been out for a while.
Right.
And then people can be like, why are these guys waxing on? I'm like, I promise you, nobody else is like, no one is out there sober doing this. Like it's just not even close. So like, whatever. I would love if anyone is like talking shit. I'm like, just come out with me. Like,
yeah, no, I think that would be super fun to like, yeah, the more the merrier, you know, and so we just wanted to do kind of an hour on this, do a little bit of a debrief about our night. I think it's something that I'm down to do again, maybe a few times, and see kind of maybe it becomes its own thing. Who knows? We're kind of playing it by ear, but yeah, we're leaning in, you know, to share with you guys here on my channel, just to kind of give you guys an open view, you know, of what I'm doing and some weird, you know, way that I'm trying
we're so weird. I think the other want here is when we're already opening up our systems so much, we want to share from that space. Like, that's really what's occurring here. Is we're not trying to tell you what you should do or what you shouldn't do. We are out there opening up our systems and like really taking action. And then I think we agreed that like, hey, we do want to contribute. I mean, that is how our systems are. So, you know, anything that we are gaining or anything that we're doing that can benefit others, like, we want to share from that space.
Absolutely. Yeah. This is not something that is traditionally even shared openly. So like, as a coach myself, it's like all these different skill sets or different results really that people are looking for. This is another way to expand my comfort zone and stretch my knowledge base and accumulate more real knowledge, real wisdom in the world, understanding more about people. I think 9 times out of 10, like I said, this is probably the least effective way to like meet someone, you know, in a serious sense to date. However, the benefits and results that come from it are cumulative and diverse and incredibly impactful from an emotional resilience standpoint. So I don't know. I think we can kind of go through some of the comments now, because we do have a few, and we'll use the last couple minutes to address a few of the comments, if that's cool with you, Todd.
Yeah. I mean, could be. Is this going to be more painful than what we've gone through?
I hope not, but we'll see. We'll see.
Okay.
I'll just pick a couple out. Let's see. Sherry says, one time this guy hit on my friend instead of me. And I guess it was noticeable that I was like, it should be me. Because all of a sudden he says, oh, you're pretty too.
He could have wanted to actually talk to you originally, but just didn't have the confidence to do it. That's most likely. There's a good chance. I don't know. I wasn't there. I can't really read the vibe, but a lot of guys do that, where they just don't have the confidence. And I'm sure you're very pretty too.
And yeah, absolutely. Something too that a lot of dating coaches and stuff will tell you to do. They'll be like, go up and don't talk to the girl that you're the most attracted to. Talk to her friend, and that way it's like a diversion.
Well, let's not even call it bullshit. I do that straight up. Like, if there's a girl that I think is really attractive in a group, I will basically ignore her. Like, I will talk to everyone else, and I will establish rapport and good vibes with everyone else. And then as soon as she tries to say anything, I'll be like, you out. So like, and that's my style, and that's how I flirt. But yeah, that can be hard. It's got to be hard as a girl going out there and feeling really judged by your looks. Like, it's got to be very difficult. Like, I'm sure I get judged too, but it's like, I just fucking, you know what I mean? So that's tough.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's good to just connect with everybody in the, like, that's my style, is to just like try and make friends with everyone in the group. So I probably,
yeah, you got to make mine sound like I'm a psycho. God, Owen, come on. No, I got to toss me under the bus, dude.
No, dude, that's your way of flirting, is like being like, no, miss, like, and that's, and I think that
whatever worked in kindergarten works now. So like, it's the same type of thing. Yeah.
And kick you back.
also groups tend to, and this isn't just like socially, but this is like historically, you know, people tend to be protective over young women, understandably, like, duh, you know what I mean? So like the more that you can convey, like you don't really care and you're just, you know what I mean? The better off. Anyways, my esoteric fucking beliefs aside. All right.
No, that's great. No, we're here to we're here to be honest. You know what I'm saying? Like that's the whole point.
To get canceled.
Right,
That's
exactly. We want my YouTube channel pulled.
Yeah, yeah. Instagram flagged immediately.
She also says, you know, I appreciate authenticity in any person most. Totally love that. Yeah, that's what we're
Yeah.
doing, which is why we will be canceled tomorrow.
Yeah, we will. We're not trying to put a mask on at all. Like, I think that's very important to us, to both of us. It's like, this is not something where we're trying to pretend to be something that we're not. Like, we are authentically trying to show up as ourselves. And actually, that sometimes can feel like a disadvantage because other people are wearing masks when they're out. Almost everyone is. You know what? Everyone is.
Yep, everyone
unless you're actively working to peel away the mask that you're wearing socially, everyone is.
Yeah, I mean, and especially in the self-development and, you know, coaching space, right? Like it's so important to keep this like facade that you know all this stuff and like nothing would ever affect you and you would never fail at anything. But honestly, like I have to be honest and say that my failures probably qualify me the most to coach, right? Like it's the businesses that I ran and failed, that ran into the ground or that I couldn't, and I know what happened. I know the mistakes that were made. Like that gives more leverage than having like all the, I've, you know, everything I've done is successful and everything I touch turns to gold.
You're reminding me of the saying of you can only take others as far as you've gone. So like what you have been through emotionally is kind of going to be your set point and your limit there. So like it, you know what I mean? Like you want someone that's really been through the grinder, you know?
I think so. Yeah. I think that's really helpful. Sherry also says importance on looks ? Which I did answer. I did answer that. In
what
the
was
chat.
Your answer?
So my answer was attractive. So which attractive could be a number of factors, you know what I mean? But if I see someone and I mean, physical attraction, it has to be there. If there's not,
you're assuming she's asking how important is it for others or how important is it for herself?
I think for us, like, oh, well, are you guys just looking at pretty girls and that's all you're interested in? As how I take the comment.
Yeah, fair. So, yeah, really interesting. So it could be that way, or it could be, like, how important do you think they are? Yeah. So what's your take on that, Owen?
Yeah, to me, it's like if the person's not attractive to me, or if the person is attractive to me, and there's a number of factors with this. And honestly, like part of the reason why I went to that seminar and kind of kicked this back up, like I was seeing someone for a while, we broke up, when the pandemic happened around the same time, and I just went on a complete downward spiral. Like I was just ice cream, sweatpants. You know, I know the induced transition well. And so again, back to my point about coaching, you know, it's like, yeah, I've been there. I know what it's like to just be like nose diving in life. But there was a number of factors that kind of contributed to that. But I think ultimately, you know, meeting someone and seeing someone that kind of inspired me to go out. And I thought to myself, okay, well, if I met this person or if I saw this person on the street, this is a beautiful girl in a number of ways, right? Like someone who's very spiritual, someone who has similar ideology to me, someone who has a similar worldview and is interested in a lot of the same things and is fun and funny, right? Like, so here's this girl who really, you know, ticks a lot of boxes for me, is like someone that I, you know, would model being in a relationship with, someone who is my type. Let's just say that. And I'm like, well, if I saw this girl on the street, like, would I have the balls to go up and immediately just say hello to her? Like, there have been times in my life where I would answer that question, yes, absolutely. And in that moment, the answer was definitely no. You know what I mean? Because here I am in this sort of whirlwind of negative emotions and frustration with the world, because my life was going in this linear kind of upward direction. And then all of a sudden I come off a cruise ship and Corona. So like, you know, all these great things are happening and then like crash. So, you know, I'm like well, if I wouldn't have the courage and the boldness to go up to this person, do I actually deserve for them to be in my life? And I don't know the answer to that question. I'm not going to say definitively yes or no, but in my own mind and to my own self and to be true to me, I would say that I think I need to have the skill set and the ability to sort of deserve to have that person in my life. And that would include going right up to them and being like, "Hey, how are you doing? My name's Owen." It doesn't have to be right like a pickup line, as we know, right? We just are talking to people,
You don't need a
whatever
line.
comes up,
Yeah.
right? Like there's not have to
Say
be any
anything.
specific thing. So it's like, look, hey, how you doing? I noticed you over there, thought you were really cute. Tell me about yourself or whatever, right? Like it doesn't matter what that is, but just that, like you had to that girl that just completely, shut down.
Do we have to bring that one right back up? I mean,
well, it's the only example we have for the audience, of that. I have tons of rejection example, by the way. I've had a girl.
it's just all going to be mine.
She doesn't want to talk to you. She doesn't want to talk to you.
So my feeling on this one, maybe a little bit different. So I think people have shame around being shallow. And I think people don't want to be perceived as being shallow. So, because there's this kind of there's this understanding in the ether that generally we over-index looks. Like it's pretty well studied and it's pretty understood that like the looks part for like a long-term relationship isn't even really that important. But like try to get a person to fuck someone that they're not attracted to and just like come back and tell me if that works. So like I used to feel shame of like shallow. And like here's the truth. We're all a little bit shallow. We all have that. Like that's part of being a human.
It makes me think of like a web page, like the sales copy, right?
Yeah.
Like if I go to a sales page and the graphics are bad, the copy's not great, the product on the other end could be phenomenal. It could be the best product on the market. But if the sales page doesn't, present well, then I'm probably not going to click the buy now button and add it to my cart. So it is a part of it. Like, and again, there's a lot, everyone's different, right? Like, so for me, there's like, if I'm attracted, right? Like I have a certain idea of what I like in someone. And if those like bullet points are hit, then great. Like I'm attracted to that person. We do have different tastes, even physically. And we've discussed that, which is a good thing, right? Like if we were both like crazy about blondes, they were skinny or whatever, like fill in the blank. That might be, that might be difficult to navigate. Like if we're going out and, meeting people. So, I say all that to say, I agree with you. Yes. We're judged on our looks as well. Like as a man, the way I dress and all that.
Like, it's just people don't want to be perceived as shallow, but like we're all shallow to a certain percent. I'm not saying that that's all we are, but like stare your accuser in the face, like in this context, like, I don't want to be perceived as shallow, but guess what? There's, we all judge people all the time, like all the time, everyone without fail. You're making an assessment of So like, to me, how important is looks, it's not necessarily that important. And also it's very important because it's needed. And then I do feel like there's a lot that women can do to, they just put heels on. They're like, you look great. So like as a guy, there's a little bit less, but then again, there's a lot of other things that we can do to generate attraction. Like when a guy has balls, you're like, okay,
Yeah, I think there's a lot. Like I think women see men with different eyes than we kind of do toward women, where they see like more factors, usually, the way he carries himself, energy and stuff like that. I think they have some insight that we may not, possess, at least not initially. Maybe we can develop some of those abilities to perceive those things. But I think that the way that women judge attractiveness on a man is definitely different in general, right? Like to speak in a generality, but no, that's great. And I think this has been really fun. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed it. I don't know how many subscribers I lost, but
yeah, so many.
Let it be what it is. We're going to talk about this, I think, and continue this kind of as a series and kind of see where it goes. I think it's fascinating. I think it's interesting. And, you know, I'm paying the StreamYard bill. So, you know, if I think it's fun and interesting and I want to talk about it, then guess what? That's what we're going to. And then on Tuesday, I have one of my best friends, someone I grew up with, someone who is extremely talented and amazing, going to be on the show. She just started her own brand. She's a branding designer and graphic designer, creative director, actually. And I won't like name drop too much, but she's very, very, very good at what she does. But she just started a new apparel brand. So I'm going to be talking to her on Tuesday on the podcast. And yeah, and I think we'll continue this and see kind of how it goes and what gives. Folks, if you have feedback, if you liked something, if you didn't like something, right? Like we're already going out and getting rejected. So don't feel, you know, don't hesitate to like send like a digital rejection my way. It's not going to hurt that much. You know what I'm saying? And Sherry also says, Todd's easy to tease. This will be fun, all in good fun. And yes, really has a great sense of humor and also a lot of tools and a lot of insight and experience in self-help, spirituality, all that kind of stuff. So I think, you know, we'll all learn from this, and feel free to share your experiences. Send us a message and we'll, you know, dissect what happened or give our take on it. You know, like I was out and this happened or whatever. And we're here again, not to obscure anything, but to open up this strange and exotic world of, you know, male female dynamics or dating dynamics between all the sexes. Not just
I just wonder how many guys really talk about it. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. We should probably look into that. I know girls will chat about it, but I think it's fun. Well, whatever. We're having fun. So
yeah, I think we initially have to have fun, and then that translates to the audience. It's the same thing, you know, in any performance. Yeah. Anya, it's the first time I've heard from you, I think. Yes, continue with this smiley face. Yeah, we all love it, dude. It's juicy. We can't help ourselves.
I think we should get more into the vulnerability. You know what I mean? Like more into the specific situations. Like, you know,
I think we will. You know, this is the first episode, so just kind of wanted to intro it. And I'll be honest, I'm super nervous to share this part of my life. Like this is very private. Yeah. And it's not something that I want to like broadcast out there that I'm, you know, necessarily, right? But if it's helpful and if I'm growing from it and we can all learn, then it's worth it.
Yeah, there's one other meta thing I wanted to point out. Like, I didn't really want to necessarily talk about this because there's judgment around, you know, us even like doing it. Like, well, why are you guys even going out and hitting on girls? You know what I mean? Like, there's even judgment around like even having that as a goal is something that you're doing. And that like, this isn't, I don't talk to anyone else about this. So like we went straight from talking to each other about it to just tell the whole world instead of like keeping a little bit, you know, under wraps. And so, but that's another thing that came up for me to own, which is like, yo, you are working on this. So what's up? Like, why are you so scared to have other people know about it? Like, just fuck it. Do whatever you want with your life. Like, you know what I mean? If I'm out there going to the bars, hitting on girls I think are attractive, like whatever, who cares? It's like, just do your thing, you know? And if I'm on the internet talking about it, you can do whatever you want to do. I promise you that.
Dude, it's so funny. I was like telling my dad, I was like, I'm thinking about, you know, doing this and talking about, you know, us going out and because like great things have come from this. Like I've met people who, yeah, we are not like dating. There was no romantic attraction there, but like because of that, like a business connection was made or referral. Like we can get into the Bhagavad Gita and how this all ties into like all these different like indirect results that can happen just from going out, putting yourself out there, all that. But I'll wrap it up with this. My dad said, he was like, oh, I think that's going to be great. You guys should definitely do that. And I'm like, what? I was surprised to hear him say that. Because like, you know, this is kind of intimate sort of thing. It's very
a little taboo. Yeah. I think the more we put it out there, the better off we are though.
I think so too. You know, like we're here to grow. If we're really going to grow, then let's lay it out and let's see what the progress looks like. And then we'll look back at this and cringe tomorrow.
For sure. But if we're so big on contribution and helping, you know, like put your money where your mouth is.
And I think it's funny, you know, people will laugh. They'll get some giggles out of it. So that's always good. So yeah, thanks everybody. Thanks so much for watching. I know we kind of had some feedback on Instagram. If you're on Instagram, go and check it out. Check out the stream on YouTube. we'll dial in, we'll dial in some of the tech stuff. This is the first time we've ever done this. Didn't really even announce it. But we can work on all of that.
And your name of the show, the morning after in the afternoon, that's so good. So good.
Yeah, I think we'll call it that for now. We'll see. Maybe it develops into its own thing, whatever. But dude, I really appreciate it. Todd. Thank you so much, man. People can't know like how beneficial and valuable it is to have someone who's going through some of the same things, working on some of the same things, and putting themselves out there, So I hope that at least people will be inspired by that we're actively.
If these two losers are doing it,
right?
Literally anyone can do anything. Yeah.
That's right. Wish upon a star, everybody. And check out Todd. Follow him on Instagram, the.todd, Todd Patrick, the Todd Patrick on Instagram. Give him a follow. And we'll be doing this. We'll see y'all next Sunday after we get completely rejected by dozens and dozens of girls. It'll be fun.
Yep. All right. Love you, buddy.
All right. Love you too. Thanks, everybody.
Okay.
All right.